Welcome back to the 10th episode of the CEO Journey podcast. Today, we're joined by an incredibly exciting guest, founder and CEO of Thirdeye Gen, Nick Cherukuri. Thank you very much for hopping on the podcast, Nick. Really appreciate it. First of all, how are you doing? How's life treating you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's entering winter, but a lot of exciting stuff going on. So really appreciate your time. Thanks for having me on, Tom.
Oh no, well, really appreciate it myself. You've obviously been through a really incredible journey for entrepreneurship, and congratulations on all the success you've achieved thus far. I noticed that you're part of the Forbes 30 under 30, which is just an incredible achievement. An
Thank you.
achievement that any aspiring entrepreneur would like to attain. But Nick, if you could just give a brief introduction to yourself and what Thirdeye Gen is.
Sure. So I'm Nick Cherukuri. I'm CEO of Thirdeye, and at Thirdeye we build augmented reality smart glasses. So kind of what I have around my neck is one version, as well as AR software. So I know the metaverse is a big theme in the news nowadays. Everyone seems to be talking about it, and we're doing some really exciting stuff in this space, and it's a really cool industry to be in.
No, that's really interesting stuff. So, Nick, with any young, exciting, and successful entrepreneur I speak to, I really like to focus and delve into greater detail about the backstory and upbringing. So, if you'd just like to talk a bit about that, and basically, how did you first develop your entrepreneurial flair?
Definitely. So I've always been working in different startups from a young age. It's always fun to work in a small team environment. I went to university in Philadelphia, University of Pennsylvania, and there, when I was attending, AR, VR was just kind of taking off. Like Oculus just came out then from Palmer Luckey. I think Stanford started like the first VR club in the nation, and while I was there, like everyone's was the movies Iron Man, like all these Black Mirror, for example, like they were all having themes about AR, VR, like hey, this is the future of where like the phone is going to go to these like glasses type of tech. So I decided, hey, why not start like a student club for this type of tech? There's nothing like it. No one was teaching this about this back then. So we started the Pen AR VR club, and that quickly grew to about 100, 200 people. So it was really exciting to see like the amount of interest in this space, and that really showed all of us like, hey, there's a lot of potential in this. So we brought in some major speakers. We tinkered around with different types of tech, and we started creating some cool like apps, like fitness apps, gaming apps, and different types of apps. So then, when I graduated, I decided, hey, like I might as well be in this space. Like this is, I'm really passionate about it.
Mm.
Like you're only young once, right? So you might as well do what you're passionate about.
No,
So that's why we started Thirdeye, and now we've since then we've obviously had a lot of ups and downs, but overall, like knock on wood, it's been pretty positive. And now we have some really cool use cases, customers. Like we have the U.S. military using it. We have major hospitals worldwide, including the NHS in the UK is using our glasses right now, which is really cool. Really interesting use cases worldwide. I think we are in 50 plus countries right now. So it's been an interesting journey, but I think it's been really cool to see like where we started off from like a small student club to where we are right now. So it's going to keep going forward, I think.
no, super interesting. So Nick, from a young age, have you always been into building things, or like who was young Nick? Were there any particular character traits that put you in a really strong position to be the founder you are today?
Yes, I've always been inspired by other people who change the world. I've always like someone once told me that like hey like a lot of people can get like famous and rich, but if you build something that build a tech that changes the world and leaves a legacy, like that's something that you're truly leaving a legacy about helping the world and making it a better place. So I read like Steve Jobs's
Mm.
famous biography by Walter Isaacson at a young age, and as well as other people like Warren Buffett, Elon Musk. He actually went to the same university. and other like really inspiring like tech and world leaders. And I tried to just learn as much as I could from them. And I think all of them have a trait where they want to build something or do something that's different. So they definitely have courage of not following the pack mentality of just doing like what everyone else is doing, but trying to come up with new ideas and do something different. And I think that's something that takes a lot, like a different type of personality. But if you're able to do that successfully, then you can leave like a positive legacy. And I think that's something that I really want to do is like use this tech to like help a lot of people out and leave a positive legacy. So that's something that really motivates me. And we're starting to do that in some areas, which is really cool.
So you obviously went to University of Pennsylvania, and what did you study there, Nick? Sorry.
So I did economics and engineering, so like having a balance between like business and tech, which is useful to know both aspects. And I also did like rugby there, rowing, golf. So I tried to be pretty active, and I think that's a trait of a lot of people I read about is they're not just like doing one thing all day. It's like even if they're passionate about it, they have a pretty active lifestyle, which helps on all aspects.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And you obviously started the AR club at Pennsylvania, which grew into something big. Did you have the mindset of creating something from the club initially, or was it just a passion play and then turned into something, much bigger?
Definitely. So I think it initially started off as a passion play. Like everyone has seen the movie Iron Man. Like everyone's like Black Mirror was a famous show. Like there's so many things like when what we're reading about in the entertainment industry about this AR VR tech. So we're like, there's no professor teaching about this. Let's do it ourselves. And that was really cool. So it definitely started off as a passion project. But then as we started to see the use cases and hey, this is not just for like gaming, but it's also can be used in healthcare. It can be used for telehealth. It can be used for telecom. There's like so many use cases that it can actually like really help people's lives that then we realize there's a really strong business use case for this. And like you can actually make a solid business plan for this tech. And that's when we started getting serious about identifying those use cases and really starting to develop for them. But it definitely started off as a passion project. But then a lot of passion projects, there's no really like business use case for them. But for tech like this, there is a really strong business use case. And I think that's why it's not just us, but if you look at like Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, like all these big market studies, Ernst and Young, they're all saying like this is the next big tech platform after your phone. So and they're putting some crazy numbers there, like it's going to be worth like $100 billion, like $1 trillion. So I mean, who knows what's going to happen like in 10 years from now? But everyone kind of agrees that this is like game changing kind of tech for the world.
And how did the idea come about, and where did you spot the gap in the market?
Definitely. So I think initially in this AR VR space, like the virtual reality market is what started off. Like Oculus was the first big headset that came on market, and that was primarily for gaming and entertainment use cases, and that was more virtual reality. Like it was this giant headset you put on your head, you're kind of blocked off from the real world, and you escape to like some different planet or some different game. So
Mm.
that was virtual reality. And then augmented reality is more about being in the real world. And AR is it's definitely more advanced in terms of the tech. Like you got to make it look really small in size if you want people to wear it all day. Whereas the virtual reality headsets are really large in size, and like people aren't going to walk around outside wearing them. But AR, it's kind of more advanced in terms of the processor, the electronics that need to be built in, and that's why it didn't take off till recently. So we kind of got lucky too, where we just got into this space right when it was taking off, right when the tech was reaching the point where it could be small enough to fit into these classes. So I think we had a bit of luck there as well. Um, but I think that's where we saw the gap in the market because virtual reality is more for gaming entertainment, but AR is more for real world use cases, and that's why people think AR is going to have a much bigger impact on the world because you have telehealth use cases, you have remote assistance, so you have so many use cases where
Yeah.
people are still in the real world, but they can pull up any digital information they need. And that's why this is going to have a really life-changing impact on a lot of people.
So how does Thirdeye fit in within the augmented reality space?
Definitely. So I think that's where we kind of looked at the different players in the market, and then we looked at what kind of tech specs we would need to separate ourselves. So there were a lot of headsets in the market, but if you remember, Google Glass was one of the first
Yes.
AR glasses that came out, but it was kind of this tiny display in front of your right eye. It was like I think a 13 degrees field of view, and the only things you could really do with it are like what's the weather or what's like what time is it like or look at text messages. You couldn't really do much more advanced things like that. So we wanted to pack like more advanced features into a headset that people would still like find cool to wear. Um, so whereas Google Glass's headset I think was 13 degrees, ours is about 50-degree field of view for both eyes, and that means when you put it on your face, you see a much bigger screen, which means you can do a lot more advanced applications. You can have like 3D holographic applications. You can walk around a virtual human body. Think of
Oh,
applications of that for education, for healthcare. So the ability to do much more advanced applications is what we focused on, and that's where I think we found definitely a sweet spot. And we're seeing really good feedback from like the U.S. military, government, hospitals, and they're pretty happy. But we're obviously have to keep innovating, keep adding new features. Every month we're adding new software and features to our apps. So I think we got to keep progressing. But I think that's where we found the sweet spot, and we kind of looked at like what people weren't happy about with like other previous headsets like Google Glass or Oculus.
okay, yeah, no, that's great stuff. And bringing it back to an earlier point, so you spotted the gap in the market. Um, and did you start the business after college or during it?
So it's about like the final year of college, and senior year. That's when we started it, and we were just kind of brainstorming ideas. But it definitely took us about a few years after to do the R&D, set up the manufacturing, like all the patents. Like I would say it took us a solid 3 years of R&D work, like from the hardware side, firmware, software. There's
Mm.
so many moving parts to the setting up manufacturing overseas, like all that stuff. So I think that definitely took us some time. But since then, it's also a really high barrier of entry as well. I think that's one of the benefits is like not anyone can do this because it's not like a app you can just code in a few months. Being able to set up the manufacturing to develop something like this is really a lot of work. So I think it was definitely worth it. And now like we're in mass manufacturing.
And you say we, because obviously you're the founder of the
Yep.
company. Were there other people involved right at the early stages when you're brainstorming, etc.?
Definitely, yeah. I was privileged enough to have like a really strong team helping me in terms of engineers, business advisors, kind of different aspects, different experts. And I think you really need that, especially if you're starting at a young age. You definitely want some experienced people who can offer advice, but you also want to have uh, your own innovative ideas as well. So it's a combination of both. I think that's why all successful companies, even if you look at Apple, like it's a
Mm.
combination of both that you need both sides, like the business side and then also like the innovative side to work together.
Yeah, completely agree. And the team's completely, pivotal for the success of any company, establishing that really strong team. How did you attract, those different members to jump on board with you?
I think it's various factors, some through existing relationships we had, some from our club organizations, and definitely being having like both the hardware and software, like we were able to attract people because most companies in this space just make the hardware or the software. But
Okay.
the fact that we do both, like Apple did initially, means we could optimize a lot of stuff and make some really cool apps that if you're just in one side of the business, you couldn't do. So it's a combination of factors. And then as we started to show like we're having major customers, then it got easier and easier. So I think by next year we should have about 500 plus people um,
Wow.
as part of the company.
Wow. And how pivotal for you was it establishing that strong team for the future success of the company? Would you say that was the most important factor, or how do you view it?
Definitely. So I think the having a strong team, and that takes some time to realize, is one of the most pivotal factors. And one thing we realized is the most important aspect of team members is their passion. Like we had people who knew nothing about this space, but they
Mm.
were just really passionate. And then within like a month or two, they read up all the materials and they learned everything about AR. And now they're some of our best performing team members. So I think passion is the number one thing, especially if you're under like 1,000 people. I would say like you need to have teams that are really excited about the goals and like, hey, you're building some world-changing products. Like every day you need to wake up feeling that. So I think that's one of the most important things we realized in terms of who worked and who didn't work. And now like we're have a much a really streamlined hiring process. So now we're able to identify really sharp people, and obviously we're also able to attract from top universities as well.
Yes.
So it's a combination of both.
And when you fast forwarding to now, when you're hiring talent, what's the like key trait you look for?
So I think it depends on what role they're
Mm.
in.
Yes, yeah,
If it's more like a sales marketing role, then we look for the passion. Like they don't need to have like 20 years experience selling because this tech hasn't even been there for 20 years. It's more about, hey, I'm really passionate. I'm going to read about everything like how this impacts healthcare, telecom, like gaming, and like I want to learn about this. So I think on the sales marketing BD side, it's more about the passion. And then on the engineering side, we definitely want people who are able to perform at a really high level, and whether it's like software engineering, hardware design, uh, cloud development. So we're looking for pretty high performers on that side. So I think, and then everything works well, pretty well.
and now tracking it back, so you established a really strong team, and then did you go about raising funding for the company, or what was the scenario with that?
Yeah, so we got some contracts where we were able to self fund for a while, which is really helpful. But now we're actually in the process of closing a pretty big partnership rounds. Hopefully, we'll announce that fairly soon. And I think that now is the right moment for that because we finished the R&D process. A lot of companies in this space, like Magic Leap or Microsoft HoloLens, they had to spend a lot of money in R&D to just get to this point. But we finished the R&D pretty much, and now it's more about just upgrades to the software, so we can really optimize the return on any investment. So I think we're pretty excited about some of the partners we're talking to, and I think that's part of the growth plan right now.
Can you elaborate on the contracts that you managed to sign to self-fund the company?
Definitely. So we won some commercial contracts and some government contracts. So this includes use cases for how AR can be used for first responders, for example, and that's one of our biggest use cases right now. And especially with COVID and everything that happened with the pandemic, that turned out to be one of our biggest use cases, where basically you could wear the glasses and an EMT or a military medic or different groups could see what someone else is seeing wearing the glasses. So imagine like it's like a Zoom but on steroids, where you have like many more
Right.
features. And it's not just the video conferencing, but you have the live annotations as well. So imagine uh, during COVID, where people couldn't travel a lot, you could have one senior doctor, one senior medic in a command center in front of their computer, and you could have a fleet of like junior or barely trained people just wearing the glasses, and the one person could give them live assistance for everyone. So that's something that helps save like I would say almost 40% improvements in task time. So that's millions in savings. So we were lucky to get some projects like that, and now we're seeing them keep growing. So our contracts are continuing to increase.
So obviously you're a self-funded company right at the start, but do you have like a, I don't know, call it a strategy for evaluating the most optimal method for funding your company?
Definitely. So I think that's where we have like a team of business advisors who kind of advise on that front. And it's really about like identifying our sweet spots because this metaverse is space, like it's massive. Like you have consumer, you have gaming, you have enterprise, you have healthcare. So we definitely got some good advice about focus on your sweet spots, which are healthcare, telecom, field service, basically anything where there's medics or technicians going out in the field. And that's something where there's a really strong business use case for this. So I think being able to focus on our sweet spots and then get more and more customers there, that's what builds value and IP. And then we also have patents. So I think we have 10 plus published US patents, and we're filing more as well. So that everything combined helps with the value of the entire tech.
And if any startup entrepreneur came to you and asked you for one piece of advice, if they're looking to raise funding, what would you say to them?
Definitely. So it's a combination of factors, but the main thing is find your sweet spot with hard ROI that no one else is really doing. And I think Peter Thiel famously said, like, your solution has to be 10x better than the nearest competitor.
Oh, that's great.
That's kind of hard to do in many aspects, but obviously, like, trying to create as many differentiators as possible, um, and finding a pain point that people would use this daily for. So I think it's finding, and it can be really simple too. Like it doesn't need to be something really complicated that it requires like a team of 100 engineers. It can be just something simple that you notice every day. Hey, like if I had this tech that would solve this issue that I'm facing, and I see like a lot of my friends or other people facing, then that can be extrapolated probably to a lot more market size, and then developing something to fix that. So it's about reducing the number of steps that people have to do, basically. So if your tech does that, then people will be interested.
That's incredible advice. And as a young entrepreneur, what challenges did you face starting a company?
Definitely, I think that's where I was lucky enough to have a group of very senior people also giving me advice. But there's obviously hurdles and obstacles, and then COVID happened in the middle, and that's like affected everyone, right? So I think uh, definitely on the manufacturing side, adjusting for that, I think everything was delayed from, and especially like tech like ours that has pretty complicated parts. Um, a lot of that being able to manage that supply chain, that was definitely took a lot of work. But we were able to move a lot of our hard manufacturing to other locations, and that's where we were able to alleviate that issue. And I think definitely the hardest part of any business is managing people. And I
Mm.
think that's where like people aren't robots, right? You can't just like expect them to work like robots. Everyone is kind of different with different personalities. So, and that's not just me, but I think like a lot of other kind of CEOs I talk to, and they all kind of agree that one of the hardest aspects is managing the people. And as you grow like different departments and optimizing uh, how operations will work. So I think that's where that definitely takes a lot of finesse and understanding personalities and how to manage people. But I think that's where if you make sure you hire the right people at the beginning, like really passionate people, um, then that will help address that issue as well because people will want to work and they won't be looking at their clocks every day, but like they'll be in the office till like midnight. Like we have people who work like till late, and then because they're just passionate about it. So I think that's where if you're able to bring in the right people at the beginning, that really helps on that front. But obviously that's impossible to do for everyone, so that you're always going to run into issues. So I think definitely for a product like ours, because it's not like a software code product where everything is stored in the cloud, but there's actually like a physical like manufacturing plan and everything that needs to be set up. That took a lot of work. Um, and then definitely the managing people aspect, and that's always going to be a thing. And even if you have like 100,000 people, it's always going to be kind of a challenge to do.
Yeah, I really like your point on managing people, and I can definitely see how that would be a struggle for most like successful founders. And you talked about, hiring them with the passion and the drive for the company. Is that how you get the best out of your people currently, or what other methods do you implement?
Yes, so we have different kind of structures. I think on the sales and BD side, we definitely incentivize people based on their kind of business sales performance. So we try to like motivate them to get as many customers as possible. And then on the other sides, like we try to have a really good company culture where we have like group company events, off sites, bring in people to talk, be flexible in terms of work. As long as you're getting what you need to do done, like it's fine, like where you're working from. So I think we try to be accommodating on different aspects like that, and I think that's where we definitely see a lot of employee happiness on that side. So I think our employees rate us pretty highly, as well as our customers as well. So we have pretty good customer success stories as well. So I think being
Right.
flexible, but also making sure people get what they need to do done, finding that balance, which is not the easiest to do, but if you can get it done the right way, then you have a happy workforce and
And
you have
have
everyone incentivized.
exactly, and having that community feel, like you said, with the group events, that's key as well. What was your go-to-market strategy like at the start?
So that's one of the most interesting, kind of difficult things with this tech because it's not like your laptop or phone or like dishwasher market where it's already well established. This is a totally new tech. No one really has done this successfully. Like even Google, like Google Glass was kind of a failure with how much money they spent on it. So I think that took a lot of kind of brainstorming and market analysis. Like, how do we make this not just a nice to have piece of tech, but something that people will want to use,
Mm.
and something that they'll see a strong ROI every day. Like, you can't go a day without your phone, right? So I think trying to make this tech as close to that as possible. Um, and that's where we decided, hey, we don't just have to build the hardware, we had to develop the software as well. So we developed our remote eye platform, which is what I would say 80% of our customers use right now. And that's a platform where if you wear the glasses, anyone anywhere can see what you're seeing in real time and give you live assistance. So, and then that's where we saw, hey, people are starting to get really happy with this tech. There's a strong ROI. And now within like 1 or 2 months of buying this from us, they're already seeing the ROI of using this tech. And then it's just increased savings, increased efficiencies, reduced machine downtime, reduced training costs. So I think that's where we spend a lot of time, like kind of analyzing why did some of these other classes fail, like Google Glass and stuff, and where can we be positioned to help succeed. So I think right now we're finding that sweet spot.
What does the competitive landscape look like for Thirdeye? And I know you've touched on it before, but how did you really go about differentiating yourself from competitors?
Sure. So in this space, I mean, there's a wide range of headsets, and like you can go from virtual reality to mixed reality to AR, and there's a wide range of capabilities as well. So I would say the most advanced kind of feature in these glasses that only a few glasses have out of like the many in the market is the ability to display 3D holograms and interact with the world. So a lot of glasses like Google Glass, like they could just display a simple text come up in front of your field of view. But the ability to have a virtual hologram, like you could have a virtual human body, or you could walk around the streets of New York City and have a virtual like dragon fly behind the Empire State Building.
Wow. Mm.
Doing things like that requires some more advanced algorithms. So we developed that software. It's called our Visionized Lamb software. I think only us, I think Microsoft HoloLens, and maybe like one or two other headsets have that, where you're able to interact with the real world. This is the same tech that self-driving cars are trying to use, like Tesla as well, where it basically has a bunch of cameras, and then the cameras kind of analyze your surroundings, make it into like a matrix, and then do a bunch of math on it, and kind of identify with image recognition and other algorithms, like, hey, there's a person or walls or different things you gotta recognize. So we have a bunch of cameras here, like
Right.
two SLAM cameras, which are able to do that 3D mapping. And then obviously we have like a normal RGB camera that you can take pictures
Yeah.
and video record like what you have on your phone. So, but the ability to do the 3D applications, that's really the really cutting edge of the space. And that's really the future with 5G and everything. That's what's going to make everyone have these one day. And then you can walk around the streets of the city and imagine you're walking by a restaurant with your glasses on, and the restaurant's reviews come up saying, "Hey, like your friend went here last week, and this was a
Wow.
review."
Yeah.
You can do like AI, like you can have virtual gaming. You can have you could walk down the street, recognize people. You could there's so many applications. So it's pretty limitless. But I think that's the ability to recognize your environment is what's going to separate these classes.
No, yeah. I mean, the extent of this technology is just so great, and it's just super interesting because I've never really been into it and have been quite ignorant towards it just from a general understanding. But yeah, it's just absolutely limitless, as you said. On a more general scale, if you were to say to an aspiring entrepreneur, where would be the key differential points to make you stand out from your competitors, what would they be?
Yeah, so I think one thing is definitely, especially where we're located, filing patents is a differentiator, and that'll make you stand out to any investor as well if you can get published patents. So we try to file as many as possible in the different features we do. And then finding like a niche use case, like you don't have to build something that's okay for everyone. You should build something that's excellent for a select group of people that really addresses an issue for them. And I think that's where a lot of people like they see the entire market and they think like I'll make the next TikTok or something, but like that takes a lot of luck and a lot of that's not the easiest way to do it. It's I think a lot more percentage of success stories are where they identify a niche pain point and they build something that really tackles that. And then once you address that, you can build out from there, like what we're doing. But you should start off focusing on something really specific and then build out from there.
Right, no, that makes complete sense as well. I noticed and read somewhere that you partnered with Verizon, is it?
Yeah, we're telecom partners with Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T. And as well as in Europe, we're partnering with a few telecoms there and in other locations. So a lot of them, they want to be 5G partners because they're looking for the next big cool piece of tech after your phone. So they want to, and 5G is going to have much bigger impact on these glasses than for your phone because of that 3D hologram applications. So 5G is going to enable like low latency display of like massive 3D holograms that require millions of polygons of data. So I think that's where the telecoms are interested in because it'll help them sell 5G as well.
And is that where you see the future with this? And
Yeah, 5G is going to be really impactful for any tech that requires a lot of data processing. So that means self-driving cars. It's going to be really helpful for smart cities, smart homes, where your home is full of these different devices, AR, VR. So I think 5G is going to have tremendous impact there because there's so much like 3D information that needs to be processed constantly. that a 5G will enable low latency, like under 10 milliseconds for
And
displays.
did you reach out to these big companies, or how did you go about teaming up with them?
So funnily enough, like actually a lot of them reached out to us
Really?
because they're looking for interesting tech. And then obviously we started to build a relationship out, and now we have relationships with them for years now. So I think you're going to start seeing these retailed in your telecom stores worldwide, I think.
And have you started investing in other AR companies? And how has that been for the business?
I think we definitely are created like a Thirdeye kind of venture investment fund, and that's where not just now, but I think more in the future as the space gets more developed, we're looking for other really cool AR AI software companies that address specific markets, and then we're interested in either partnering with them or acquiring them. Like there's different use cases. Like if it helps build out our tech, like that could make a good sense to do an M&A acquisition. And
Yes.
then once that happens and we have access to the source code and everything, we can do a lot more deep integration of the code with our tech and make it much more optimized. So I think that's where we're looking at. I mean, there's some really cool applications, and
Mm.
the ones that stand out are like some people are doing really cool remote surgery applications where like instead of a surgeon having to have a millions of dollars piece of equipment or having to look back and forth with the monitor, they can
Mm.
wear the glasses and the glasses will literally tell them where to do the surgery. Like
Wow.
that's something like that's a huge savings for any hospital right there. So I mean, there's some really cool stuff that different groups are doing that we're starting to look at. So it could definitely be something in the future.
And how important will acquisitions be in terms of growth for Thirdeye?
So I think we'll see how the space plays out, but the way we're seeing it is just like your phone market, like the iPhone came out and then people started to make like millions of different apps for it, right? So I think similar to that market, as these glasses come out, people are going to make millions of apps for these. Like we're going to have a Unity Unreal SDK for it, and it's going to be really interesting to see all the different apps. And I think then we'll identify in there which ones are useful, like that we feel are match well with what we're doing internally, and then we can do M&A for them, or we can partner with them just on the marketing side. There's many ways to like partner with different companies. So I think over the next 3-4 years, we're going to see like millions of apps being made in the AR space. So it's going to be really, really cool.
So what's your overall long-term vision for Thirdeye then in the next like 5 to 10, even 15 years?
Definitely. So I think that's where, I mean, Steve Jobs, I think, is one of our inspirations. And the way he started off, like creating something that no one even thought about. And he had a really famous, one of his most famous quotes, I think, when he was giving a speech was, people don't know what they want until you show it to them. And that really stuck with us because if you're making something new that no one's seen, then you got to show like why they would want it. And then once they put it on their face or try it out, then they'll realize, wow, like I can't live without this. So we want to reach that stage and really follow the model that he did of building out the hardware and software. We have an app store. So we have developers. I think we have 500 plus developers making apps already. So we want to have developer competitions. And our goal is eventually to have 1 billion users of this,
Wow.
like just like a phone. And I think in like 5 to 10 years, everyone's going to have one of these type of glasses and have a account, a AR software account, and have their own like virtual 3D hologram of themselves. So imagine like right now when you do a call with someone or you message someone, it's just 2D on your phone, like or like the Zoom call, it's like a 2D application. But pretty soon, and what we're working on is 3D calls. So imagine you're calling someone, you put on the glasses, and their 3D hologram will come up talking like them.
That is
So
insane.
that'll be like that's the next stage of even basic phone and text messaging. So yeah, we're really excited, and we have a goal of like get 1 billion users, and I think step by step. we'll try to get there.
And once you get those 1 billion users, do you have a plan to exit or?
I mean, there like we'll have a lot of options, but I think we want to keep once we get that to that stage, like it'll be such well developed like business that at that point it's more about like leaving a positive impact. I think at that point like we'll have like the build out revenue models and everything, like it'll be a pretty well oiled machine, and then it's about like using this tech to help people. And I think that's really the most important part of this is like the money aspect is on one side, which that definitely this tech will help develop that B2B aspect, business side. But the ability to help people out, I think that's where we're seeing the most positive use cases and the biggest impact. Like for example, there are 2 billion people worldwide who are vision impaired.
Yeah.
So these glasses can help people see properly. Like if you're vision impaired or partially blind, you wear the glasses can zoom in, zoom out of what you're reading. Like if you're reading a book or watching TV, maybe it can recognize a family member you may have forgotten. If you have Alzheimer's, you can have a box next to their face saying, hey, it's my brother Mark or something. It can do optical character recognition of reading what's in front of you. So telehealth for rural areas where they don't have access to tier one doctors. So I think that's where like leaving that positive impact. Once you have 1 billion users, you have such big access to the market that you can really leave a positive difference that way.
And that focus on leaving a positive impact, does that keep you really driven and motivated today, and especially when times get rocky in the business?
Yes, and I think that's our North Star. So, I mean, we have our business North Stars, like, hey, these are like a user growth metrics, like all that stuff. But our main North Star above all that is like leaving a positive impact using this tech. And I think that's what drives people to work with us, and that's why they stay up late and continue making adding features or talking to customers and stuff. It's about this is something that can really leave a legacy, but making the world a better place. So I think you got to find a balance always of the business side and that side, and that's what we try to do.
Can you share any advice for any business, any founder going through a really tough time in their business and how to cope with that?
Definitely, and I think over the next year or so, we're
Oh
already
yeah.
seeing in the news like it seems to
Mm.
be like with everything that's going on, like potentially like recessionary economy, and I think that's where you always have to be streamlined and self-disciplined. So even when the times are good, we never spent like crazy. We were always really careful about everything we spent on, who we hired, and we keep a really lean, agile staff. So if you have the mentality that even when times are tough, like you won't be affected that much. You'll have a strong runway. But if you always think, hey, like times are gonna be good, I can hire like 100 people immediately, like and just keep going even if I don't need them, then you're gonna have run into issues like if the times go down. So I think that's where you always have to keep the same mentality of only spending on what you absolutely need. And a lot of people like when they get funded, like they just start hiring like crazy or spending on different marketing stuff. We never did that, and I think that's where we have like a really strong runway, and we're able to satisfy all our customers that way. So I think just having the mentality always, regardless of whether it's really good times or bad times, that'll keep you going.
And as a founder, what inner struggles do you personally go through by running this company?
Oh, what obstacles?
Yeah, like just any inner struggles on a personal level, or what do you find difficult?
Definitely, and especially as a young founder, you got to work uh, extensively. Like you got to work till late at nights on the weekends. You got to miss a lot of friends events, even family events, and that's something you got to realize is that if you're really passionate about it, you won't think of this as work. Even if you're missing, like if your friends invite you for a night out or something, like you can't do that because you have like a major feature or customer to do, and that's a sacrifice I think every founder has to make. But I think the benefits of the sacrifice far outweigh the downsides if you're passionate about what you do. But I think that's something, especially when you're a young founder and you see like all your college friends or something like doing some
Yeah.
things, and then but you have to be focused, and uh, we're thankful we did that because now like we're seeing the benefits of that.
Are you an incredibly determined and motivated individual then?
Yeah, I try to be. I definitely there's definitely improvements you can always make. But that's where for every founder you got to find something you're passionate about because if you're passionate about it, then you want to look at it as work. You want to be like, hey, I had to wake up at 6 a.m.
Mm.
7 days a week to do this. You'll be like excited to wake up. So that's where it's really important to find something you're passionate about. Then and that's true not just for business, even if you're like a sports player or
Exactly.
whatever. That's the main thing.
I completely agree. And what factors have made Thirdeye so successful?
So I think it's a combination of really hard work as well as luck. So we're fortunate on different aspects on that front. On the work side, we definitely spend a lot of time analyzing in detail what is what worked in this AR space and what didn't work, and that's where we identified like adding the 3D holographic slam tech, building out our own software in different industries. Um, really focusing on the B2B side initially, not the B2C side. That's really helped us find our niche market and build out customer use cases. We're also lucky enough to start off at the right time in the space, right when the tech was reaching the point where it was small enough to fit in this form factor. And our next glasses will be much smaller than this too. Like they'll look like a pair of eyeglasses almost.
Mm.
So we were fortunate enough to come at the right time in the space. And definitely, like you said, building a strong team and persevering through obstacles. Like we had a lot of obstacles, but having a strong team is what really helped us out. So I think that's where combination of everything, and you definitely need some luck too. Like it's not just if I work like really hard, it'll happen, but combination of everything. But I think you need the technology experience, you need the market analysis, like you need to do a lot of work on that front and finding what you're really good at. You need to have a really solid team, and you need to be able to persevere through a lot of obstacles. Uh, and then the rewards can be really high after that.
And looking back, would you change anything?
I mean, definitely 2020 hindsight, like hindsight's 2020, like there's definitely things you can look back and change. I mean, there's things a lot, especially on the tech side, like there's a lot of features that we probably some we would have added, some we wouldn't have added based on some of the customer feedback. And because this is a really ergonomic device, this is something people wear on their faces, right? It's much more ergonomic than even your phone. So there's a lot of like user interface things there that we would have revised or done things differently. But all of those were really good lessons for us, and there are things people are really happy we included as well that other people didn't include. So who knows? Like even if we made those changes like back then,
Mm.
like there might have been other things that people would have noticed because of those changes. So you can never say like if I made that change, like everything would be perfect now, because you never know what that change could have affected other stuff, right? So I think everything happens for a reason. So, and that's true for anything.
No, 100%. And I think that's a great place to wrap up this podcast with. There's been so much useful insight and value to be taken from this episode. But I just have one last question because obviously you know that we're a podcast big on advice for entrepreneurs. And what would be your number one piece of advice for any aspiring startup entrepreneur?
I think the number one piece of advice, and this is also other people have mentioned this to me as well, is that at a young age, when you're young, you have a lot more energy. Like you don't have a family, like you can find what you're passionate about. So I think one of my best decisions was instead of following like a traditional kind of business route, taking the risk and starting this and starting something that I was really passionate about. When you're young, you have that ability because you have a lot more time on your hands, a lot more energy. So I think that's something that would be really good advice for anyone. If you find something you're really passionate about, do it at a young age, because even if it fails, like worst case, like you still have time to like do other things as well. But you don't want to look back at your life and wish you did something. So that's something that I'm really happy I did that, and hopefully other people can find similar passions.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Nick. Yeah, as I said, it's been a great episode. Thank you for sharing all your insights and adding so much value. We wish you all the best of luck with Thirdeye, and I'm sure it's gonna, continue to grow and be a big success and achieve your vision. Have you got anything else that you'd like to add?
No, really appreciate it, Tom. So I think anyone who's interested in this AR, MR, metaverse, smart glasses space, feel free to reach out. You can go to our website, thirdeye.com, or reach out to me personally on LinkedIn or other platforms. And
I'll
yeah,
put
we're
those
happy
down in
to
the description for you, Nick.
get anyone involved. It's a really cool space to be in. It's the future. So happy to talk to anyone.
Great. No, lovely. Well, thank you once again, Nick. We hope you enjoyed this podcast to all the viewers, and make sure to stay tuned for the next episode.